A silent signal flashed through space, cold and fast, moving between satellites, stations, and systems like a whisper of doom. It came from the outer colonies, where peace had lasted for over 100 years. The message was short, but the meaning was clear. Invasion in progress. Immediate assistance required. No one expected the Star Dominion to return. They were a brutal species, cold-blooded, efficient, and unstoppable. The last time they attacked, they wiped out 12 civilizations in less than a month. After the peace treaty, they disappeared, licking their wounds, silent and watching. Now, they were backhand. Their fleet was even larger, faster, and deadlier. The Galactic Council received the signal first. Ambassadors and leaders from over 40 species met in the Grand Chamber, watching in horror as live footage showed the burning skies of Yaris. 3. The planet was a peaceful farming world, home to over 7 million colonists, now under siege. Council guards rushed to secure the building as panic spread. Ships were scrambled, but everyone knew the truth. They were too late. The council had grown used to comfort, politics, and long debates. They forgot what real war looked like. The fleets they sent out were soft, undertrained, and far too slow. Within 5 minutes, Yaris 3's defense grid was gone. Within 10 minutes, the surface cities were on fire. The enemy wasn't just attacking, they were sending a message. This was not conquest, it was domination from orbit. Alien commanders watched as their ships moved with perfect precision. Their laughter echoed through Cums as another colony begged for mercy, but no one came to help. The peaceful species of the galaxy had become too afraid, too weak. Each one hoped someone else would act first. They waited until they noticed one response blinking on the emergency relay. A forgotten frequency lit up in bright red. EARTH incoming transmission. The council room froze. No one had heard from humans in over 20 years after the Terran War. Earth pulled back from all alliances and turned silent. They didn't attend meetings, didn't trade much, and didn't share their tech. Some even believed humanity had fallen into chaos or simply vanished. So when Earth answered the distress signal, some thought it was a mistake. But the message played again, clearly and without emotion. Confirmed. Coordinates received. Fleet. En route, the alien ambassador from the Auric race stood up. Trembling. "They're really coming," he whispered. A few others laughed nervously, trying to make jokes to ease the tension. Humans. After all these years, what can they even do now? But the laughter stopped as the live feed from Yaris 3 showed the planet's atmosphere boiling, millions of lives lost within seconds. Silence fell again, heavy and cold. And then, something unexpected happened. Above the burning skies of Yaris 3, space began to ripple. It was not a normal warp signature, not like the Council fleets. This was something else precise. Ancient and massive. One by one, enormous black shapes emerged from the rift. Ships that hadn't been seen in a generation. Not sleek or shiny, but armored like fortresses. Glowing with red and blue lights, each ship carried a name burned into its hull. Glory of Soul, Iron Sovereign, Hellborn, TNC. Hammer, the human fleet had arrived. Star commanders laughed at first. They had fought humans before and won, but this time, something was different. These ships were not diplomatic vessels or light patrols. These were warships from Earth's deep vaults, machines built during the darkest days of the Terran Purge. Ships that were never meant to patrol, they were designed to end wars. The lead ship sent no hail, no introduction, no warning. Instead, it scanned the battlefield once, and then everything changed in less than 10 seconds. 3 enemy cruisers exploded from invisible strikes. No energy beam, no sound. Just pure kinetic force-like planets hitting each other. The alien command ship tried to fire back, but its weapons froze, hacked in mid-charge. Other enemy ships spun in confusion, trying to lock on targets they couldn't even detect on the ground. Star soldiers looked up in panic as metal pods rained down from orbit, each one carrying a Terran Marine. Silent and unshaking, the council chamber watched all of this live. No one speaking, a single voice from an old recording played again and again in their minds. "We're coming." Admiral Rourke, commander of the human fleet, stood on the bridge of the Glory of Soul, staring through the glass at the burning world below. He didn't smile, didn't blink. Status. He asked, "All targets locked. Ready to begin sweep," his AI replied. He gave one simple command. "Do it." The screen cut out. The council room now in total silence. All they knew was this: the human fleet had entered the war zone, and the enemy, once unstoppable, was about to vanish faster than anyone thought possible. Not with speeches, not with warnings, but with action. The war had begun, and humanity had returned. Not as diplomats, not as victims, but as the storm. The human fleet didn't make noise, didn't broadcast their entry, and didn't waste time talking. They just appeared like shadows out of history. Like old ghosts waking from deep sleep. There was no flashy entrance, no music, no cheers. Only giant black ships sliding into real space with perfect formation. To most watching from the surface or from orbit, it looked like the sky had cracked open. Each ship was massive, larger than most alien battleships. Yet strangely silent, the ships had strange names. Written in faded old Terran letters: Vengeance, Gravewalker, Iron Sovereign, Glory of Soul, Silent Honor. Some names had been spoken in fear by old war historians. Some were only myth ships thought destroyed or retired long ago. At the front of the formation stood the Glory of Soul. Its commander was Admiral Elias Rourke, a man known for his silence and sharp mind. He didn't smile, didn't blink much, and rarely spoke. But when he did, people listened. He had been part of Earth's final major war, the Terran Purge Wars, and had seen what most of the galaxy forgot. The Council tried to contact the humans. Messages were sent from the galactic headquarters, full of diplomatic words. "Welcome back, friends of Earth. Please confirm your intentions. Let us coordinate response efforts together." But the humans didn't answer. Not a single word, not even a ping. They weren't here to discuss, they were here to end a threat inside the Glory of Soul. The crew moved like a machine. Each officer was trained in old Earth war doctrine: fast, brutal, exact. The AI systems on board were older than some planets, still powerful, still loyal. Unlike the modern fleets of the galaxy that used energy beams and slow auto-targeting, the Terran ships relied on mass-based weapons, kinetic strikes so fast that no shield could block them. One solid shot could tear a cruiser in half, and these ships had thousands. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge, watching the battlefield. Enemy ships floated in loose formation, confident, unaware of what was coming. "Analysis?" he asked. The AI responded instantly. "Enemy fleet, poorly disciplined, relying on fear and size. Weakness detected in their rear guard. No counter-strategy visible." Rourke gave a nod. "Begin calibration. Engage in 20 seconds. Back on the Council's live stream, ambassadors sat frozen. They were watching the impossible. Ships that shouldn't exist anymore were now ready to engage one of the galaxy's most feared threats. But the humans didn't just engage, they moved first, without warning. The Vengeance launched its first payload, a group of tungsten rods shaped like needles. Dropped from orbit at near light speed. They didn't glow, didn't roar. They just fell, and then impact. The main star flagship exploded into fire and twisted metal without time to react. Sensors couldn't even capture what hit them. Other ships tried to move, but the Gravewalker was already flanking their left. Stealth modules let it glide through their blind zones. Fired once, and 3 enemy ships lost power at the same time. By the time the star realized what was happening, they had already lost a third of their fleet. Still, they fought back. Energy beams lanced across space, targeting the Iron Sovereign, but Earth's ships didn't use normal armor. They used reactive plating. Each energy beam was absorbed, redirected, or neutralized. Then came Earth's reply. Solid slugs that punched through the enemy hulls like paper. The human fleet didn't speak, didn't gloat. They just kept moving. Each shot was a message. We are not your prey. We are not your experiment. We are not. Forgotten back in orbit, the Star Admiral, a four-eyed warlord named Draxon Mal, screamed in rage. How are they doing this? Why aren't their weapons failing? His crew had no answer. Nothing was working. The humans were moving faster than any prediction models could track. Some alien fleets watching the battle had to turn off their feeds they couldn't handle. What they were seeing, it was slaughter, but not wild, messy slaughter. It was calculated, professional, and surgical. No wasted movement, no missed targets, no chaos, just cold, controlled destruction. Council leaders started whispering. One ambassador from the VRAC system asked, "Do you think they'll stop after this?" No one answered, because deep down, they all feared the same thing. Earth didn't come back for peace. They came back because they were provoked. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Admiral Rourke finally gave his second order. Deploy ground sweep units. I want the colonies cleared within 20 minutes. Dropships launched, silent and fast. Filled with Terran Marines in old-generation power armor. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were trained from birth, enhanced with old Earth tech, and tested in simulation wars for decades. As they hit the surface, Star ground forces opened fire. But their weapons couldn't even scratch the armor. Terran Marines didn't pause. They moved like a tide, covering ground quickly and quietly. One by one, enemy bunkers fell, and captives were secured. Not one human soldier spoke on open comms. Their orders were already understood. Protect the innocent. Eliminate the enemy. No mercy for monsters, and up in space, as the battle neared its end, Admiral Rourke looked over the battlefield. His face still showed no emotion, but his voice carried through every human ship. This is what we are. This is what they forgot. Let them remember, and so they would, across every screen in the galaxy. Aliens watched and realized the truth. The humans were never gone. They were just waiting. Space had turned into fire, but the battle was already over before most enemies understood what had happened. The moment the human fleet arrived, the war changed. The star dominion once feared across galaxies was being crushed in seconds. They were loud, angry, and proud of their power. But none of that helped them when the first human strike landed. The Star Command ship had no time to react. A single kinetic projectile hit it from above, not glowing, not flashing, just falling like a silent hammer from the stars. It tore straight through the hull, the core, the engine, ripping the massive ship in half. There was no sound in space, but everyone watching the stream felt like they heard an explosion anyway in a single hit. The enemy flagship was gone. Other starships panicked, moving to escape or regroup, but the human ships were already in position. Unlike most alien fleets that relied on reactive formations, humans used pre-calculated war maps. They didn't wait for orders in battle. Each move was already planned before arrival. The second wave came even faster. Human stealth ships, small but deadly, had already surrounded the enemy without being seen. These were Earth's Phantoms, cloaked corvettes with silent drives and no energy emissions. They moved like shadows, completely invisible to sensors. And when they attacked, they didn't miss. One corvette dropped a tungsten needle into the engine bay of a star destroyer. No. Lights, no sound, just a sudden collapse of the ship's core. Another released anti-ship drones that latched onto targets and self-detonated with enough force to vaporize hulls. The enemy didn't know where to aim, who to fight, or how to escape. Alien commanders started shouting into comms, begging their computers for explanations. Where are they coming from? Why can't we see them? But no one had an answer. It wasn't magic. It was just better war planning, back on the glory of Sol. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge, calm as ever. His eyes didn't blink as the live feed displayed red X marks. Across the enemy fleet, each X meant a kill. Each second added 2 or 3 more enemy fleet response. Rourke asked, chaotic. No coordination. Multiple ships attempting to flee. 4 have already surrendered, his AI responded. Sweep them, he ordered, and just like that. The remaining human cruisers moved in. The Iron Sovereign unleashed a full kinetic volley. The projectiles hit the fleeing ships from behind. Ripping through armor and fuel lines like paper, one ship spun out of control, crashing into a second one. It looked like a fireworks show. But this wasn't a celebration. It was a lesson. Never underestimate humans. The star tried a last. Move firing all weapons at once in a desperate arc. But Earth's ships were ready. They didn't just dodge, they predicted. Before the beams were even fired, human AI had already calculated their paths. The ships shifted slightly, absorbing or avoiding every blast. And then they returned fire not with beams, but with pure impact. One star captain screamed as his screen filled with the sight of a Terran slug moving at near light speed. He had no time to move, no time to think. Then nothing. His ship was gone in just 60 seconds. Half of the Starfleet was destroyed. In less than 2 minutes, 90% was disabled, drifting or in flames. And still, Earth hadn't said a word to the enemy. No threats, no speeches, no demands. Aliens watching the feed across the galaxy felt chills. They had mocked Earth's silence for years, but now they realized that silence wasn't weakness, was patience. Back on the ground, Terran Marines had already secured half of the cities the star had taken. They didn't move like normal soldiers. They were fast, smooth, and organized. Every squad had exact objectives, and every move was timed. The star who expected easy slaughter now found themselves outgunned, outmatched, and begging for their lives. But the humans didn't kill without reason. They captured when they could, protected civilians, and moved on. They weren't conquerors. They were executioners of justice, and the galaxy was watching at the edge of the battlefield. One final group of starships tried to escape. They opened a wormhole, trying to jump away, but Earth's ships had already blocked it. Out of nowhere, the dreadnought Gravewalker jumped into the path. Its weapons charged 5 shots fired. 5 kills confirmed. No escape, no mercy, no second chances. For the first time in centuries, an enemy force was defeated before a proper battle could even begin. And the ones who did it were the species everyone forgot. The ones who stayed quiet, kept to themselves, and only watched. Now, Earth was no longer watching. They were correcting, on board the glory of Sol. Admiral Rourke finally allowed a single message to be sent across all frequencies. It was short, cold, and clear. Your war is over. The signal was heard across the galaxy by enemies, by allies, and by those who once doubted humanity. It was a reminder written in fire and blood. Do not wake the sleeping giants. And now that the giants were awake, the galaxy would never forget what happened in that war zone. Not in 1 minute, not in 1,000 years. Because in the end, the enemy didn't last a minute. The enemy fleet in space was destroyed, broken like glass under a hammer. But the job wasn't finished yet. On the ground, the star still held control over several cities. They had landed there before the human fleet arrived, capturing buildings, setting up weapons, and using civilians as shields. These invaders had expected no resistance, only silence and fear. But what they got? Was Earth inside the glory of Sol? Admiral Rourke stared at the map of the planet below. It showed red zones blinking places where star forces were still active, civilians trapped, hostages taken, explosives planted. Rourke didn't hesitate. "Deploy surface protocols," he ordered. Level 1. Full sweep. The Terran Marines had been waiting for that order within seconds. Drop pods began launching from the underbelly of Earth's dreadnoughts. Each pod looked like a black coffin with a fiery trail. They pierced the sky like thunderbolts, smashing into the planet with terrifying speed. From inside each pod stepped a Marine heavy armored, armed with pulse rifles, shock blades, and neural scanners. They didn't speak, didn't yell, they just moved. The Star Soldiers who waited on the ground were loud and proud. They laughed at the idea of humans sending old-fashioned ground troops. But their laughter stopped the moment the first Marine entered their building. 1 star. Warrior, twice the size of a human, rushed to attack. He didn't even reach the Marine before his body froze, hit by a stun pulse to the nervous system. Another tried to fire a plasma bolt, but the Terran armor absorbed it completely. The Marine walked forward without slowing down. 1 punch star. Down across the city, it was the same Terran units landed with quiet precision, sweeping through buildings, disabling traps, freeing civilians. They used sonic scanners to locate life signs and heat trails. They avoided harming hostages, even if it meant risking their lives. They weren't just fighters, they were protectors. That's what made them terrifying. They didn't fight because they wanted to. They fought because they had to, in one building. A Star Commander had a group of alien children huddled at his feet. He pointed a weapon at them, shouting into a camera, "If you come closer, I'll kill them all." He didn't know a Terran Marine was already behind him. One silent movement, one sharp strike done. The children were safe, and the Marine was already gone before they even looked up. Back in orbit, Council observers were watching the live feed. Some were in tears, others in shock. They had sent messages asking Earth to hold off, to wait for further instructions, but Earth didn't wait. They moved faster than any Council force ever could in just 30 minutes. The largest city on Yaris 3 was cleared of enemy soldiers. 0 civilian deaths, star losses, total, inside. 1 control center, a Star officer screamed into his comms. "They're not fighting like soldiers. They're moving like machines." He was right in a way. Terran Marines were trained to operate in squads, but each soldier was also autonomous, even if they lost contact with command. They kept going. Their eye-assisted helmets gave them updates, scanned rooms, mapped routes, and detected threats in milliseconds. They didn't need orders, they just needed a target. Admiral Rourke continued to monitor everything. His screen showed dots turning from red to green, one after another, sector by sector, building by building. The planet was being taken back. Not with bombs, not with fire, but with discipline. This was not just a battle, it was a message. The enemy had expected humans to be slow, soft, maybe angry, but what they got were soldiers who moved like ghosts and struck like thunder. The Star began trying to retreat, but it was too late. The Terran forces had already sealed off escape tunnels and hidden launch pads. Every route was watched, every door covered. Some enemies tried to surrender. They were captured, bound, and moved safely into secure zones the humans didn't kill. Needlessly, but if anyone raised a weapon again, they were dropped instantly. The civilians of Yaris 3 didn't know what to make of the black-armored soldiers. Some were afraid, hiding behind walls. Others stepped out slowly, whispering, "Are you here to help?" The Marines didn't answer with words. They simply nodded and handed out water, food, and medkits. A small alien girl grabbed one Marine's hand and said, "Thank you." The Marine didn't reply, just stood still as her mother cried in. Relief. By the end of the operation, the entire planet was cleared. No more star, no more fear. The Council ships that arrived late found nothing left to do. The humans had done it all. Without support, without delay, without hesitation, and still, Earth said nothing to the Council. No thank you, no alliance offers, just one short message broadcast across all open frequencies. It came from Admiral Rourke himself, a calm, steady voice that echoed through every receiver. This planet is under Earth's protection now. That sentence shook the galaxy, not because it was loud, but because it was final. Earth didn't ask for permission. They didn't beg for help. They came, they acted, they saved, and now? The galaxy had to ask itself a dangerous question. What if Earth decided to protect more than just one planet? Because if they did, no enemy would last a minute. The Star Dominion had never lost a war before. They believed in strength, in fear, in showing power through fire and blood. But after the humans arrived, everything changed in less than 1 hour. Their ships were gone, their soldiers defeated, and their pride shattered. Now, for the first time in history, the Star gave an order they thought they would never speak: retreat. High above Yaras 3, inside a battered command ship that barely survived the first wave, Star Admiral Draxon Mal shouted at his officers, "Get us out of here! Jump now!" But the navigators had no good news. Wormhole exit points are blocked. The humans have cut off our escape routes. Draxon's 4 yellow eyes widened with shock. How? We have multiple exit gates. They can't all be covered. But they were. The Terran fleet had already moved into position, surrounding every possible retreat path. Small, fast human ships known as interceptors darted between the stars, dropping jamming devices and gravity locks. Any ship that tried to jump would either crash into space debris or be pulled back by a tractor field. It was like a trap closing slowly on. There was no way out. A few starships tried to force their way through the blockades. One heavy cruiser powered up its warp drive, planning to punch straight through the human formation. But before it could even reach full speed, a single Terran railgun fired. From the Iron Sovereign, the shot hit the cruiser at its front, traveled through the center, and blew out the engines and back. It spun once, broke into 3 pieces, and vanished into silence. The remaining Star commanders panicked. They had no plan, no hope, and no idea how the humans moved so fast. Their strategies built on slow-moving fleets and intimidation were useless here. Earth didn't shout or threaten. Earth didn't talk at all. They just acted. Some ships tried to send distress calls back to their homeworld, but Earth's is had already jammed all long-range communications. Nothing got out. It was as if a wall had dropped around the battlefield, trapping them in complete darkness at the edge of the system. The Dreadnought Gravewalker activated its broad-range announcement system. A single message was sent to the surviving starships, cold, short, and terrifying: surrender now, or be destroyed. The voice didn't sound angry. It didn't sound excited. It was calm, like someone offering 2 options and not caring which one was chosen. The Star knew what came next. They had seen it happen already, but their pride wouldn't let them surrender. Not all of them. Some ships powered up weapons, charging for a last stand. Inside one ship, a captain shouted, "We'll die fighting." But before he could launch a single missile, the vengeance struck. One perfect hit to the weapon's band, the ship exploded into light. Others watched in horror. One by one, they started powering down, lowering shields, and turning off weapons. They broadcasted signals in all languages. "We surrender." Dozens of ships drifted silently, waiting for capture or destruction. But Earth didn't destroy them. They sent in boarding drones. The drones didn't kill. They hacked, scanned, and locked every control system in place. Then Terran soldiers boarded to take control. Silent and efficient. No one was hurt who didn't resist, but those who did. Didn't last long. The Council fleet, which had just arrived at the edge of the system, watched everything from a distance. They saw the battle was already over. They saw the enemy once feared, now begging for mercy. They saw Earth acting. Alone, with no support, and still winning perfectly inside the Council ship. One ambassador whispered, "They've done what we couldn't do in 20 years. Another replied, "And they did it in 20 minutes. No one had any more jokes about humans. No one called them weak, or simple, or emotional anymore. The Star High Command back on their homeworld received no messages from their fleet, only silence. They tried to send more reinforcements, but Earth had already locked the system. Every ship that approached the border was warned once, turn back or be erased. None of them dared to test it. Back on Yars 3, the civilians, who had hidden underground, began to climb out. They looked up at the human ships still floating above like dark stars. Many of them cried, not because of fear, but because they were safe. The ones who came had saved them not for money, not for glory, but because it was right. One child, holding a broken toy, asked his mother, "Will the bad guys come back?" His mother looked at the sky and shook her head. "Not while the humans are watching." In the main command room of the Glory of Soul, Admiral Rourke stood silent. His officers confirmed. Enemy fleet surrendered. All targets cleared. Civilian. Zone secured. Rourke didn't smile. He only gave one quiet order, broadcast message to all systems. The AI asked, "What message, Admiral?" Rourke spoke without hesitation. "Let the galaxy know. Earth has returned," and across every corner of space, that message echoed, not with fireworks or noise, but with silence that spoke louder than any threat. The humans didn't want power. They didn't want titles, but if evil rises, they will be there. And if war comes again, the enemy won't last a minute. The war was over, but the galaxy wasn't cheering. No one clapped, no one sang victory songs. Everyone was silent, staring at their screens, trying to understand what had just happened. The Star Dominion had been one of the most feared powers. In the galaxy, they destroyed planets, enslaved species, and made the Galactic Council feel powerless. But the humans stopped them alone. And in less than 1 hour, the Council building, floating in space near the central star, was full of stunned silence. Ambassadors from 50 civilizations sat frozen in their seats. On the giant screens, they watched the final moments from the war zone, starships drifting powerless, human marines helping civilians, and Earth's dreadnoughts still standing strong like silent guardians. A Varnic ambassador broke the silence first. "They didn't even ask for help," he whispered. "They didn't even wait," added another. A third leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "They didn't just win. They made it look easy." One of the council leaders stood up, trembling. "For years, we begged for peace, tried diplomacy, delayed action, because we feared what war would cost." He looked at the screen again, but the humans, they didn't fear the cost at all. They remember what war really is. Someone else said, or maybe, the first replied, they were never allowed to forget. No one argued. Instead, they listened again to the message that had gone out across the galaxy. Admiral Rourke's voice played softly. "This planet is under Earth's protection now." Simple words, but they hit harder than any weapon, because those words didn't just protect one planet. They were a warning, a line drawn in space. If any species tried something like this again, they would not only face resistance, they would face Earth. Some council members began to whisper, "Afraid? Is this a new human empire? Will they take over the council?" But others shook their heads. "No. They're not here for power," one ambassador said. "They didn't take prisoners. They didn't claim territory. They just ended the threat. Even though the humans didn't say it, everyone could feel it. They weren't here to rule. They were here to restore balance, and if that meant using force, then so be it. Across different sectors, news channels showed the same footage. Human soldiers helping small alien children, Earth medics treating injured refugees. Ships from Earth handing out food and supplies without asking for anything in return. This wasn't a conquest, it was a rescue mission. And it worked in backwater colonies where people once feared being forgotten. Something new began to happen. They started raising Earth's old flag on rooftops, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted protection. One merchant on a mining world said, "I never cared much for humans, but after today, I'll carve their crest into my shop." A mother on a refugee moon held her child and whispered, "Thank the stars they came." Even the criminals of the galaxy started paying attention. Warlords, slavers, and smugglers all watching the same broadcasts. One crime boss in the shadow sector destroyed his own communications lab and said, "Don't cross Earth." Not anymore. Back in the Star Dominion, chaos was spreading. The High Command was furious and terrified. They had lost an entire fleet, and now their people were asking questions. How could the mighty star lose so badly? Why were their warships falling like leaves in the wind? Why did the humans fight without fear and without mercy? Some star leaders demanded revenge, but others knew better. They saw the reports, they read the data, and they understood one horrible truth. They had awakened a sleeping monster. Inside the glory of Sol, Admiral Rourke remained still, watching. The stars outside the viewing window. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. He was already thinking of the next threat, the next mistake someone would make. Because he knew something the rest of the galaxy was just now learning. Peace doesn't last. Not when evil keeps finding ways to rise again. Earth had gone quiet for years, but they never stopped building, never stopped preparing. They had been hurt in past wars, lost millions, and pulled away from the galaxy. But they didn't forget. They didn't forgive. And now they were back, but this time they weren't interested in politics or trading seats at fancy councils. This time they were interested in results. If a planet was threatened, Earth would defend it. If a species was enslaved, Earth would free it. And if an enemy rose again, Earth would destroy it. In the weeks that followed, the Star Dominion fell apart. Other species refused to trade with them, support them, or even speak their name. Without their fleet, their economy collapsed. And their citizens demanded justice. All because they attacked one peaceful colony, and Earth said no. That single no had shaken the entire galaxy. Not because it was loud, but because it came with action, swift, sharp, and unstoppable. And now? In every dark corner of space, a new fear had begun to grow. The fear of what happens if Earth comes for you, because when the humans rise, the enemy doesn't last a minute. The galaxy was no longer the same after the humans entered the war zone and crushed the star in less than an hour. Everything changed. Planets that once lived in fear were now filled with hope. Criminal empires were shaking, warlords hiding, and leaders rethinking every future step. But the biggest shift wasn't in the stars or in ships, it was inside the minds of the people. They had seen what humans could do when pushed, and now they couldn't stop thinking about it. In the days after the battle, the Galactic Council met again. Every seat was filled, every species present. Even the ones who usually sent holograms came in person. This time, no one was late. Everyone had the same question on their mind. What happens now? The chairman, a wise old creature with 6 eyes and gold skin, opened the session. "We all saw what Earth did," he said quietly. "They saved Yaris 3, ended the threat, and did it faster than any of us could have dreamed." He paused, looking around the room. But they did it alone. A Varnic ambassador stood up. They didn't ask for help because they knew we'd waste time, he said. They didn't wait for permission because they knew lives would be lost if they did. Another delegate nodded. They came like a storm. But they left the people safe, fed, and protected. A nervous ambassador from a small trade world asked, "But what if Earth wants control next? What if they want power?" The room fell silent. Then someone quietly replied, "Then we're." Lucky they didn't want it before, even the star representative, who had been silent the entire time, finally stood, his uniform torn, pride broken. But voice steady. "We underestimated them." He admitted, "We thought their silence was weakness. We were wrong." His next words shocked the entire room. The star formally surrendered all war claims. "We will not fight Earth again." Ever, outside the council halls, the galaxy was still reacting on peaceful planets. People put up signs, "Protected by Earth." Shops began selling human-made tools, ships, and food in schools. Children asked, "Teachers, are humans really that strong? Can they hear us if we're in trouble?" On remote mining colonies, workers carved Earth's flag into the stone walls. Not because they were told to, but because they felt safe for the first time. In years, one father, holding his small daughter, said to a news crew, "They don't speak much. But when they do, stars help you listen." Meanwhile, back on Earth, life was quiet. The cities didn't celebrate the victory. There were no parades, no songs, just quiet streets, busy factories, and focused minds, because humans knew something others didn't. Peace never lasts, and evil always finds a way to return. Inside a giant underground base known as Vault 7, Admiral Rourke walked through long steel halls. He passed old war machines, locked storage bays, and Frozen A is silent, but watching. He finally reached a room with one wall covered in large black screens. Each screen showed a different part of the galaxy, some peaceful, some dangerous, but all under silent observation. A young officer approached him. "Sir, requests for aid have increased," she said. 3 colonies want human patrols. 2 outer worlds have asked to fly the Earth's crest for safety. Rourke didn't look surprised. "They'll all want help now," he said. "Some truly need it. Some want to be close to power." She hesitated. "And what will we do?" Looked at the screens for a long moment. "Help those who need it." He replied, "Watch the ones who pretend." Earth didn't want to build an empire, but they also wouldn't stand by while innocent lives were taken. Their silence all those years was not because of weakness. It was because they were waiting for a moment like this to remind the galaxy that humans weren't just survivors. They were defenders. And when they rise hard and fast, and nothing evil stands in their way. Back in council space, rumors began to spread. Stories of a hidden group of human ships, cloaked and watching. Tales of human operatives who were already inside pirate groups. Gathering information, whispers about weapons so advanced even human allies were scared of them. No one had proof, but no one wanted to find out the hard way either. The message was already clear. If you harm the weak, if you conquer the peaceful, if you touch a world under Earth's watch, you won't just face a response, you'll face judgment. And judgment comes fast when it's wearing black armor and flying in a ship called Gravewalker. The galaxy didn't just change because Earth won a battle. It changed because now, there was a line that no one wanted to cross again. And if someone did, everyone already knew what would happen next. Because when Earth moves, the enemy doesn't last a minute. Far away from the bright lights of the Galactic Council, deep under the surface of Earth, there was a place not many knew about. It was hidden inside a mountain, guarded by layers of steel and silence. The place was called the Legacy Vault only. A few humans had ever stepped inside. Even fewer knew what was stored there. Admiral Elias Rourke walked through its heavy metal doors alone. He wasn't wearing his uniform, just a plain black coat and quiet boots. His face was tired but focused. This was not a place for medals or cheers. It was a place for truth. The walls of the vault were lined with thick screens and sealed glass windows. Behind them were the oldest human war machines, massive, powerful, and deadly. Some were ships, some were AI cores. Some were ancient devices no one had touched in years. Each one had a name, a history, and a reason to remain locked away. Rourke stepped toward the final chamber. A red scanner passed over his face, his hand, his voice. Admiral Elias Rourke. "Clearance confirmed," the vault said. The door slid open with a deep hiss. Inside was a single dark room, quiet and still. In the center stood a control table with a large screen. Rourke tapped a button, and the system came alive. A female AI voice spoke softly. "Welcome back, Admiral." "No entries in 71 days. Time to make one," Rourke replied. He opened the mission log and spoke clearly. Operation Warzone Sweep. Location, Yaris, -3 system, enemy. Star Dominion Fleet. Result, victory. Time to complete, 57 seconds. He paused, then added, "No Terran casualties. All objectives completed. Enemy defeated. Planet secured." The screen blinked once and saved the log. Then a metal plate below it opened, revealing a small storage slot. Rourke placed a silver memory drive inside, a full recording of the battle from the first shot to the final surrender. The vault accepted it with a quiet hum and sealed itself. Again, the event was now part of Earth's hidden history. As Rourke stood there, his eyes moved to the side wall. There on the black stone were hundreds of names carved deep into the surface. Names of humans who had given everything for peace in wars long forgotten. Rourke slowly reached out and touched one name, Captain Dela Cruz, Jupiter Siege. 2961. She would have been proud, he whispered. The vault wasn't just a place for weapons. It was a reminder of who humans were and what they had endured to survive. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, change was spreading like wildfire. More colonies requested Earth's protection. More civilizations asked to learn Terran tactics. Even the Galactic Council began updating their defense systems based on human methods. But Earth didn't celebrate. They didn't send diplomats or demand rewards. They returned to their own systems, quietly. They watched the stars again, like they always had, because peace, to them, is not something you hoped for. It was something you protected in schools across Earth. Children now learned the history of the galaxy, who helped, who failed, and why silence had become necessary for so long. But now, silence was no longer their shield. Now, it was their weapon, Terran A. Systems scanned the galaxy night and day. They tracked pirate activity, intercepted illegal trade routes, and marked threats before they became dangerous. Humans were no longer sleeping. They were observing. Some alien empires still tried to act brave. One minor warlord threatened a neutral system protected by Earth. His message was loud and full of pride. Humans cannot stop us. We are not afraid. But 24 hours later, his fleet was missing. No shots heard, no warnings given, only empty space where his ships used to be. No one claimed responsibility, but everyone knew Earth had spoken. The galaxy was beginning to understand something important. Humanity didn't need to roar. They didn't need to send thousands of soldiers to every star. All they needed was the belief that someone needed help. And that belief alone could shake the stars. One alien journalist wrote, "They are not monsters. They are not gods. They are humans. And that makes them the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Because they choose when to act, and when they do. There is no stopping them." Back inside the vault, Admiral Rourke stared at the large screen. New reports were coming in another colony in danger. A rebel force gaining power. He sighed. knowing rest would not come soon, but he was ready. Because this is what humans were born from, not peace, but fire, and they had learned to carry that fire in silence. He turned and walked out of the vault, the heavy door locked behind him, and above the entrance, carved into the metal, was one final message. Here sleeps the storm. Do not wake it unless you are ready to be judged. And now the galaxy knew, when Earth enters the war zone, the enemy doesn't last a minute.